Hey everyone, I'm Rohan. I'm one of the co-founders of CypheRock. With me, we have Vipul, who's the other co-founder. And we're basically building a hardware wallet. For the specific purpose of the Hacker House, we basically built the first hardware wallet support for Starknet. So a little bit about us at CypheRock. So we are basically a hardware wallet with built-in social recovery, which is unlike other wallets where you have one device in which used as a signing device, and then you have a copy of your seed phrase on a piece of paper. We completely revamped that sort of architecture, and in our case, we use something called a Shami secret sharing to basically decentralize your private keys into these 5 things, which is your 4 cards and 1 device. And you need, anytime you want to make a transaction, you just need the device plus the card to make a transaction. Secondly, it's the highest rated hardware wallet by Coin Bureau, who is one of the biggest wallet reviewers in the space. And lastly, it's security audited by Key Labs, who have found vulnerabilities in both Ledger and Treasure hardware wallets before. So a bit about how it's different from other hardware wallets. It's sort of 10x more secure because, practically speaking, the device never stores the complete private key in one single place permanently, and hence, because there's no single point of failure, the attack surface of physical attacks automatically gets drastically reduced. Secondly, if you want, you can still have a seed phrase backup, but for most users, that's a daunting task. And so in our specific hardware architecture, you don't need to maintain a seed phrase backup at all. We are going to soon launch the industry's first non-custodial, non-KYC inheritance service as well, which is, again, an unsolved problem in the space right now. And yeah, we are soon going to be the only hardware wallet with Starknet support. So when we went through the Hacker House, we realized there were a few critical problems that we could solve from the hardware wallet perspective. Obviously, there was no hardware wallet support for Starknet. Secondly, currently, the wallets that most of the Starknet community uses is basically Argentex and Bravos, and both of them, the private key used to generate that is generated for the account contract deployment still happens on a browser, which is not secure. Thirdly, there's an inconsistent derivation paths between Argentex and Bravos, which leads to incompatibility between the wallets. So it's very hard for a user to switch between the 2 wallets. And lastly, because we didn't have Starknet tokens so far, the other wallets don't support it yet, and it becomes a fragmented UX for a user because for other of his assets, he uses some other wallet. For Starknet, he uses Argentex and Bravos. I mean, most of the users, whether we like it or not, still prefers to have even your other assets like Bitcoin, Solana, the usuals. So when we went deeper into why these problems exist, we realized there were few of them. So one is Starknet is not an EVM compatible L2, and it's basically a much larger dev effort for wallets to support than the obvious other EVM compatible L2s. Secondly, whether we like it or not, most of the users in the space are still speculators and investors. And because Starknet token hadn't launched yet so far, so it was no one's incentive when it comes to wallets to support it, because the users were not asking for it. And lastly, we realized that the current transaction signing CLib specifically for the Stark curve is not optimized for embedded devices. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to sign it, which could scare the more established wallet providers, specifically when it talks about the hardware wallet. So as part of the solution, we obviously supported Starknet through our hardware with our CLI, which is the command line interface. I'll quickly go over the steps that we went through. In interest of time, I won't be able to show the actual transaction signing because it takes some of the time. But if someone wants to actually, basically see it live, we are going to hang around here for some time, so we can definitely chat and show you a live demo. But the core steps was the first one was to basically generate an account address on the CypheRock X1. Then the transaction needs to be signed for the account deployment on the Starknet because it's a native account abstraction contract. So that's the second thing we needed to do. The contract gets deployed, and it can be verified by the user on the StarkScan that the account contract gets deployed for the user. Then, obviously, he can do, once the account contract is deployed, he can basically sign transactions for ETH already through our wallets. And the final step for a user is he can, basically verify the transaction on the StarkScan itself. So what's next for us? We obviously want to optimize the transaction signing lib. No one is going to wait for 5 to 10 minutes for a transaction signature to happen. So we're going to get it optimized relative to what the other curves are. Secondly, we want to support it on the SciSync app as well. So right now, the implementation was just on a CLI, but we want to basically do it on SciSync app. The third is like we also are structuring our product not just as a wallet, but also as a wallet aggregator. So what we realized was the space is not just moving multi-chain, but it's also moving multi-wallet. So you have people using Ledger, they're using MetaMask, Argentex, bunch of different wallets for their different purposes, and becomes difficult and basically becomes a very fragmented UX for most of the users in the space. So we would basically support different derivation paths for all of the wallets, including Bravos and Argent, so that they can track all of their assets in one single hardware. And then basically more deeper integration into the Starknet ecosystem. Yep, thank you. Yeah, if anyone wants to see the live demo, we are at the back. But we just one last point, we actually did a very recent transaction. So I am hopeful that we can see it. Yeah, it was sort of approved 4 minutes ago. So if you want to try it out, happy to.
So we just did a live transaction. We initiated the transaction before the talk. And as you can see, on the Starknet Stark scan, there's a recent transaction right there.
All right, thanks everyone.